All right, so this week we're going to dig into something that I think is pretty relevant to, well, everyone, really. We're talking about AI's influence on how we get our news.
It's a hot topic, that's for sure.
Yeah, and to really get into it, we're going deep on this episode of the AI in Action podcast from just last week, October 14th. They had some really fascinating examples of just how much AI is already changing things.
It's really incredible how fast things are moving, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's not just about robots writing articles, though that is happening, right?
Right, although that in itself is a huge shift. But what I think is even more interesting is how AI is impacting journalism at its core. How news is discovered, shared, even how we consume it. It's like we're talking about a fundamental shift in the entire news landscape.
Totally. Like, for instance, the way AI is being used to revitalize local journalism.
Hmm.
The podcast talks about this Swedish media company called Mitt Media.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. It's fascinating.
So they're using AI to cover those smaller local events, the kind of things that might go unnoticed otherwise.
Which, let's face it, is a lot of local news these days, unfortunately.
Sadly, yes. So imagine AI acting like this tireless reporter, right? Attending every town council meeting, every bake sale, every little thing. It's making sure even the smallest happenings are reported and shared with the community.
It's a significant development because local news is often the first to get cut when budgets are tight. Mint Media is like this really interesting case study in how AI could help fix that. Like, by automating certain parts of the job, AI could free up human journalists to, I don't know, do more in-depth reporting, investigations, that kind of thing, but also make sure those everyday events that actually shape a community don't just disappear completely.
Right. It's like having our cake and eating it too, so to speak. I mean, it's pretty credible to think that AI could be the key to keeping local journalism alive, maybe even help it thrive again. But then, like with any new technology, there are always questions, right? I'm curious, like how this might actually work on a global scale. Could we really see AI revitalizing local news everywhere?
I mean, the potential is definitely there. Just imagine a future where AI is helping newsrooms everywhere, from huge cities to tiny villages, connect with their audiences on this hyper-local level. It's an exciting thought, but we have to approach this with nuance, right, Tay?
How so?
Well, every community is different. What works in Sweden might not translate perfectly to, say, a small town in the US or a village in India.
That's a really good point. We can't just assume a one-size-fits-all approach is going to work.
Exactly.
So the podcast also gets into this broader impact of AI on news, and it seems like we're kind of talking about a double-edged sword here.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, AI offers some incredible opportunities to really enhance journalism, but it also comes with its own set of challenges for sure.
Like what? What kind of challenges?
Well, take, for example, the whole idea of personalizing news feeds.
Yeah.
The AI in Action podcast, they actually spotlight this new AI-powered search engine. It's called ASI, AI-powered search.
Kitschy name.
Right. Anyway, it's designed to basically curate your entire news experience.
So how does that work?
It learns your interests, your preferences, all that data.
Uh-huh. So instead of getting a general overview of, the day's news, you're presented with a selection of stories tailored just for you.
Exactly.
Okay, see, that sounds incredibly convenient, like on the surface. But then it also makes me wonder, are we risking getting trapped in what people are calling filter bubbles?
100%. I mean, that's the core issue, isn't it? How do we make sure these personalized news feeds are giving us a balanced and comprehensive view of the world instead of, just reinforcing our existing beliefs and biases? It's a question researchers and developers are really grappling with right now, especially as AI starts to play a bigger and bigger role in shaping our information landscape. It's a bit of a tightrope walk,
No way.
This whole idea of balancing that tailored experience, but then also making sure people are still exposed to different perspectives, a diversity of thought. It's tricky.
For sure. It's like that whole thing they say in tech, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. Just because AI gives us the ability to hyper-personalize everything doesn't mean it's always the best way to go, right?
Totally. Like those suggested content algorithms.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it's great. They show you exactly what you want. But then other times you really need to, break out of that loop, discover something new.
Absolutely.
And speaking of breaking out of loops, the AI in Action podcast, they also get into how AI is being used to combat fake news, which is, let's face it, a huge problem these days.
Oh, absolutely. It's a massive issue.
So it's not all doom and gloom, though, right?
No, not at all.
Because amidst all these challenges we've been talking about, there's some really cool innovation happening in how AI can actually be used to, identify and flag this stuff, this false or misleading information. And they specifically talk about this tool called Mirage News. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, yeah, Mirage News. It's pretty interesting stuff.
So from what I gathered, it uses some pretty high-tech stuff to analyze images and captions. And it's like sniffing out these inconsistencies that might point to fake news.
It's really fascinating how it works. So imagine you have an image, right?
Okay.
And it's claiming to show this recent event.
Right.
But then the metadata, when you actually look at it, it reveals that the image was actually taken like years ago.
What?
Or you might have a caption that totally contradicts like the emotions that you're seeing in the photo itself. That's the kind of thing Mirage Knows is designed to catch.
So it might.
It's using machine learning to actually analyze those visual elements, like facial expressions, objects in the image, even the overall context of the photo, and it's cross-referencing that with whatever text is there with it.
That's incredible.
It's like having this like digital magnifying glass, right?
I love that.
Scrutinizing every little detail for signs that something's been manipulated, that it's not what it seems.
That's amazing. So it sounds incredibly powerful. But even with these, really advanced tools, doesn't the human element still play a crucial role? I mean, we can't just hand it all over to the machines, can we?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, AI is great, don't get me wrong. It can be amazingly effective at spotting those like initial red flags, inconsistencies. But human judgment, still essential. We can't discount that.
So we're not obsolete just yet.
Not by any means. Think of AI as like a super powerful ally in this fight against misinformation, not a replacement for, our own critical thinking skills.
Right. It's about finding that balance, I guess, right?
Exactly.
Utilizing those strengths that AI brings to the table, but also recognizing that technology by itself can't solve the whole problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, developers are creating these incredible tools, that's for sure. But it's really up to each of us to use them wisely, to do our own cross-checking, and just approach all this digital information with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Which I guess brings us back to the listener, right?
Yeah.
What does this all actually mean for how we as individuals navigate news in this day and age when AI is playing such a big role?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it's something we should all be thinking about. On the one hand, we've got these amazing opportunities, right? Personalized news experiences, tools to help us fight against misinformation, maybe even a future where local journalism is thriving again. But on the other hand, we've got to be aware of those potential downsides. Filter bubbles, algorithmic bias, and just that constant challenge of trying to figure out what's true and what's not in this digital age.
It really is. It's like, I don't know, navigating a minefield of information out there.
That's a great way to put it. And it's like, with a minefield, having the right tools and knowing how to use them, it can make all the difference.
Totally.
And we've talked about, AI's potential to personalize our news, which is amazing. But we have to make sure we're not, just always staying in our comfort zone, just seeing the same kind of stuff.
Exactly. It's about being like active, an active participant in how we understand the world.
So as AI becomes even more, I guess, ingrained in how news is made, how we read it, all of that, what's like one key takeaway you hope our listeners will really remember from all of this?
Oh, that's easy. Don't just passively consume. You've got to question things, cross-check, look for other sources. And I think the biggest thing is remember, like even with all this AI, behind every algorithm, behind every news feed, every AI-generated article even, there are still people there, humans making choices about what information gets shared and how it gets presented.
It's like that saying, right? Trust but verify.
100%, yeah.
We can appreciate all the cool things AI can do, but we still got to be smart, discerning, not just accepting everything at face value.
Be curious, be critical, and don't underestimate, that gut feeling, that judgment we all have.
Love that. Great advice. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for, really diving deep into this with me. It's been honestly eye-opening. The pleasure was all mine, really. I always enjoy these conversations.
And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Keep those thinking caps on, right?
Definitely.
This whole world of AI and news, it's just getting started. We'll be here to, break it all down with you every step of the way. Until next time, keep asking those questions.